60 guests sit down for dinner. The menu is $300 per person. Add wine, and the dining room can ring up more than $20,000 before midnight. The tables are booked weeks ahead, the chef is famous, and every plate looks as if it costs more than a normal family dinner. From the dining room, this appears to be an extraordinary money machine. It may not be. That $300 meal is not a product moving down an assembly line. It is a live performance produced once for one guest in one seat at one exact time. If the chair is empty, tonight's inventory expires forever. If it is occupied, hours of work from cooks, servers, sommeliers, cleaners, reservation staff, and suppliers may be required to create a single experience. A luxury restaurant can be expensive, fully booked, and internationally admired while leaving its owner with surprisingly little. The real question is not how much the guest pays. It is how much of that payment survives the system required to justify the price. And that system starts consuming money long before the first guest arrives. A high-end kitchen needs extraction, refrigeration, fire suppression, plumbing, electrical capacity, specialist equipment, and a layout capable of surviving hundreds of precise movements every night. The dining room adds acoustics, custom lighting, furniture, glassware, tableware, bathrooms, and usually an expensive address. Then come permits, deposits, architects, recruitment, training, test meals, opening inventory, and payroll while revenue is still zero. There is no universal startup cost. A small chef-owned room and a giant luxury steakhouse are completely different investments. But the upper end shows how quickly the numbers become serious. STK restaurants opened in 2024 and 2025 averaged almost 12,000 square feet and roughly $689 in construction cost per square foot before landlord contributions. That implies a gross build cost of about $8.2 million, plus approximately $600,000 to $800,000 in cash pre-opening expenses. An independent 60-seat restaurant may cost far less, but even a $3 million or $4 million opening creates an uncomfortable reality. Most of that money is trapped inside a leased building. The ventilation system, marble bar, and custom kitchen cannot simply be packed into a truck and sold for their original cost if the concept fails. So the owner invests millions in an asset with limited resale value. Then the doors open and the business immediately meets its second limit. There are only so many chairs. Take a 60-seat tasting menu restaurant with a $300 average guest check, operating 5 dinners a week for 50 weeks. With one full seating every night, theoretical annual revenue is $4.5 million. But perfection is not a forecast. At 85% occupancy, sales fall to $3.825 million. That 15% of empty capacity removes $675,000 before weekdays, temporary closures, cancellations, or seasonal slowdowns are considered. Even the chair does not tell the whole story. Operators track revenue per available seat hour, how much money each seat earns for every hour it can be sold. A luxury guest spending $300 over 4 hours generates $75 per available seat hour. Now compare that with a restaurant serving $390 guests in the same chair across a 4.5-hour evening. That chair produces $270 for the night, or $60 per available seat hour. The luxury restaurant charges more than 3 times as much per guest, yet the chair earns only 25% more per hour. That is the hidden cost of turning dinner into an event. The long experience justifies the price, but it also prevents the restaurant from selling the same seat again. This means every empty table is unusually expensive. If the 60-seat restaurant loses only one table of 2 per night, at a $300 check, 5 nights a week for 50 weeks, $150,000 of potential annual revenue disappears. Some ingredient cost is saved, so this is not $150,000 of lost profit. But the rent is unchanged, most of the team is already working, and much of the preparation has already happened. The inventory vanished. The cost stayed. Now follow the money from one guest. Across full-service restaurants, food and non-alcoholic beverages often consume around 1/3 of sales, while labor can consume more than another third. Luxury dining does not follow one universal formula, but the direction is clear. Revenue belongs to the business only briefly. The most expensive part of a luxury dish is often not the ingredient. It is repeatability. A carrot may cost almost nothing. But one cook ferments it, another turns its trim into a sauce, a third creates a garnish, and a server explains the result at the table. The labor can cost far more than the carrot. Multiply that process by 15 courses, dietary substitutions, handmade bread, custom ceramics, petit fours, and a development team designing next season's menu. Luxury dining does not merely buy rare food. It buys attention. That is why Michelin stars can produce a strange economic mismatch. Michelin judges the cooking, ingredient quality, harmony, technique, personality, and consistency. It does not award stars for expensive furniture or elaborate service. Yet the owner must still pay for those things because a guest spending hundreds of dollars judges the entire evening. The star may be earned on the plate. The price has to finance everything surrounding it. Even wine is more complicated than it appears. A bottle can carry an attractive markup, but it must first be purchased, stored correctly, insured, and sold by trained staff. Some bottles may sit for years. A seller can create profit while trapping hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory at the same time. The average check therefore hides the real economics. Two restaurants can both collect $300 per guest. One gets there through costly food and intensive labor. Another gets there with a simpler menu and a strong beverage program. The revenue is identical. What remains is not. Return to the 60-seat model generating $3.825 million a year. This is an illustration, not a forecast for every restaurant. Suppose food and beverage costs consume 30%, or about $1.15 million. Labor takes 38%, or roughly $1.45 million. Occupancy takes 9%, around $344,000. Utilities, laundry, insurance, card fees, repairs, marketing, software, and administration consume another 13%, almost $497,000. The restaurant is busy and highly priced. It still has only $382,500 left as restaurant-level operating profit, a 10% margin. But that is not the owner's take-home pay. Reserve 3% of sales, about $115,000, to replace equipment, refresh the room, and protect the standard that supports the price. Now $267,500 remains before interest and taxes. If the opening required $1 million of 10-year debt at roughly 8%, annual loan payments would be around $146,000. Pre-tax cash falls to approximately $121,500. If the owner invested $3 million of equity, that cash represents only about a 4% annual return before tax. A few more empty tables could erase it. There is another distinction many people miss. If the owner works as executive chef or general manager and receives a salary, that salary is payment for labor. It is not profit on the investment. To judge the restaurant honestly, ask two separate questions. What did the owner earn for doing a full-time job, and what did the millions of dollars invested earn for taking the risk? A restaurant can give its owner a respectable salary and still be a weak investment. It can also report an operating profit while producing very little cash after debt and reinvestment. The dining room looks successful because it is. The investment may tell a different story. This is why a tasting menu is not only a creative decision. It is an operating system. A fixed menu tells the kitchen approximately how many portions to prepare, simplifies purchasing, coordinates the dining room, and makes the average check predictable. Wine or non-alcoholic pairings increase revenue without requiring another seat. Controlled seating times help the kitchen release courses in sequence instead of receiving every order at once. But every solution creates another pressure. A changing menu requires research, new suppliers, training, and new explanations. Pairings require inventory and skilled service. Dietary substitutions can force the kitchen to operate several hidden menus simultaneously. Reservations create the sharpest risk because a luxury table is perishable inventory with a high value and almost no last-minute replacement market. Prepaid bookings turn the table into a ticket, closer to a concert than a normal reservation. After Alinea introduced ticketing, its reported no-show rate fell to just over 1%. Noma now generally makes cancellations non-refundable inside 14 days. Financially, that is rational. Emotionally, it transfers part of the restaurant's risk to the guest. The system protecting profitability can make hospitality feel less hospitable. And once a restaurant becomes famous, an even larger contradiction appears. Prestige creates demand, but demand cannot be scaled easily. Adding tables may damage service. Shortening the meal may weaken the experience. Standardizing every dish may dilute the creativity that created the reputation. So success pushes the restaurant toward higher prices, more courses, specialized staff, better tableware, and more research. Guests then arrive with higher expectations because the price and awards promise perfection. A small mistake that might be ignored in a neighborhood restaurant becomes unacceptable in a $300 experience. Acclaim raises expectations. Expectations require labor. Labor pushes prices higher. Higher prices make every mistake more expensive, while the number of seats remains fixed. That is the prestige trap. The restaurant becomes more famous faster than it becomes more scalable. And Noma shows where that trap can lead. Noma opened in Copenhagen in 2003, helped define new Nordic cuisine, was named the world's best restaurant 5 times, and eventually earned 3 Michelin stars. Demand was not the problem. It achieved the level of recognition most chefs spend a lifetime chasing. Yet in 2021, during a pandemic-disrupted year, Noma lost 1.69 million Danish kroner despite receiving 10.9 million kroner in government compensation. The abnormal year does not prove that its normal restaurant model was unprofitable. It does show how quickly a prestigious institution becomes vulnerable when service stops but the organization remains. The deeper warning appeared in 2022, when Noma began paying interns who had previously worked without pay. The change reportedly added at least $50,000 a month to labor costs. Paying people for real work is not an optional inefficiency. It revealed that part of the old system had depended on a hidden subsidy, ambitious young cooks absorbing labor costs that the menu price did not fully cover. In 2023, Noma announced a move away from continuous restaurant service toward a broader food laboratory, periodic dining experiences, and packaged products. This was not an admission that the brand had failed. It was recognition that the dining room was not the most scalable asset. One table can serve a few guests each night. A bottled product, technique, partnership, or piece of intellectual property can travel to thousands of customers. Noma is scheduled to reopen in Copenhagen in August 2026 with new day-to-day leadership, shorter working hours, 12 micro-seasons, and a menu priced at 4,500 Danish kroner before wine. The experience is now being compared with theater, concerts, and major sporting events. That comparison is economically honest. Noma is not pricing dinner as nutrition. It is pricing a scarce cultural performance. The institution survived by becoming more than a restaurant. The strongest ownership models often reach the same conclusion. A hotel may tolerate a modest restaurant return because the venue helps sell rooms, weddings, and prestige. A restaurant group can spread purchasing, finance, marketing, and reservation systems across multiple locations. A chef can earn from products, books, media, licensing, consulting, and partnerships. Private dining can monetize the room outside normal service. These extensions do not guarantee profit. They attack the fundamental weakness. One dining room has a hard ceiling. In the best case, demand remains strong, beverage sales are healthy, labor is controlled without damaging quality, and the restaurant produces a strong operating margin while building a valuable brand. In a realistic success, the room stays busy, the owner earns a salary for active work, and the investment produces a modest return that requires constant reinvestment. In decline, a few empty tables, higher wages, food inflation, or a rent increase erase the cushion. The owner may work harder while earning less. In failure, debt and occupancy costs continue after the excitement disappears, and the beautiful build-out is sold for a fraction of its cost. So the apparent business was never simply buying ingredients and selling them at a giant markup. It was coordinating labor, time, reputation, and a fixed number of perishable seats. Food creates the attention. Beverages can improve the margin. Prestige fills the room. But control of complexity determines whether the owner is building wealth or merely financing an impressive performance. Owning a luxury restaurant is not really ownership of a dining room. It is ownership of a live show that must sell out, night after night, without allowing the cost of perfection to consume the price of admission.